The Exige is very much for the Lotus Driver and probably for the upper end of the Lotus Driver spectrum, the guy who really wants to push the car hard, the guy who wants to go on a track. It's a very, very finely balanced car. It really comes alive on the track. On the road it's fantastic, a really good car to drive, but it's the track where you really start to feel its qualities come through.
Though it shares the same revolutionary chassis and high-performance engine as the Elise, it's the distinctive aerodynamic innovations of the Exige that provide its superior high-speed cornering, grip and handling on the track. The front splitter, rear wing and underbody diffuser work together to mould the airflow above and below the car. The resulting downforce, an astonishing 100 pounds at 100 miles per hour, is evenly distributed between the front and rear axles and provides exceptional balance at high speeds. But most importantly, the Exige is the current pinnacle of Lotus performance. So well developed, so finely balanced, that it invites you to explore your limits with confidence. In 1948, Lotus founder Colin Chapman built his first car, the Mark I, to compete in motorsports. Beginning with the fundamental belief that you maximize performance through efficiency and lightweight, Chapman went on to constantly change the rules of car design with a series of brilliant innovations that kept his Lotus race cars consistently at the head of the pack, and more often than not, in the winner's circle.
Lotus is inspired by its heritage, the heritage of creating great cars that were a little bit different from all the other sports cars around. And that was also how the Formula One team back in the 60s and 70s was very successful, by being a little bit different.
The Lotus racing heritage includes victories in Formula One, sports cars, Le Mans, World Rally Championships and club racing, with 7 Formula One Constructors' Championships, 6 Drivers' Championships and hundreds of other race wins and championships throughout the world. For more than 50 years, on racetrack and road alike, every Lotus car has possessed an exclusive blend of racing heritage, technical innovation, and a passion for driving that has changed the rules of sports car design and manufacturing at every turn. The Type 14 Lotus Elite was the first car built on an all-glass fiber monocoque chassis. Using innovations in material science, Chapman's beautiful Elite was far lighter than those made with traditional tubing and steel. As stunning today as it was almost 40 years ago, the Elite went on to win the Index of Performance at Le Mans. The Type 25 was the first Formula One car to use a monocoque chassis. Extremely light and rigid, it provided speed and agility that made the most of its 1.5-litre Coventry Climax engine. With Jim Clark at the wheel, the Type 25 and its successor, the Type 33, would go on to dominate Formula One racing for the next 4 seasons, winning 20 Grand Prix race and World Championships in 1963 and 1965, making it the most successful Formula One car of its time. The Lotus Type 78 was the first Formula One car to use the Venturi principle to turn the entire bottom of the car into a downforce generator, using side pods to create a vacuum underneath the car. The follow-up, Type 79, refined the principle and resulted in a car that took Mario Andretti to the World Drivers' Championship in 1978. The Type 79 also brought Lotus its 7th Constructors' Championship. Another prime example of Lotus's innovation in advanced composites and structures, Lotus applies the monocoque approach to bicycling, helping Chris Boardman pedal away to a gold medal and world record at the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona on the Lotus 108. Lotus unveils its award-winning all-aluminum monocoque chassis. This revolutionary chassis is constructed from 26 individual aluminum extrusions that utilize an epoxy adhesive and E-Jot self-tapping steel rivets for mechanical control while the epoxy cures. The resulting chassis is a mere 150 pounds and stiff enough to support the finely tuned Lotus Elise suspension.
At Lotus, we often use the phrase change the rules. This means we are not constrained by convention. If we were constrained by convention, we'd have never bonded a vehicle structure together primarily out of aluminium extrusions. It's that philosophy which drives the design community in the company.
Every time you increase the weight of the vehicle, you increase the horsepower you need, you then increase the size of the brakes, everything gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and in the end you lose any finesse, you lose any feeling of excitement. There's no response to the vehicle.
Performance through lightweight was one of the fundamental keystones in how Colin Chapman decided to develop cars. It was about finding materials and ways of making cars lighter, but it was also about eliminating things that were not necessary or get things in the car, components, to do more than one thing.
And that's why with the Elise, a 190 horsepower engine can deliver 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.9 seconds. Established in 1966 on the site of a former World War II US Air Force base, the Lotus manufacturing facility in Hethel, England, is where our innovative designs come to life. Though a tremendous amount of high technology goes into every Lotus, each car is hand-built over a span of 3 days. Each component is hand-painted and hand-assembled. Unlike mass-produced cars coming off the competition's robotic assembly lines, at Lotus, each car receives over 100 labor-intensive man-hours of personal attention. The Lotus Elise, with its epoxy-bonded aluminum chassis, composite body panels and high-performance suspension and powertrain, is a design breakthrough that changed all the rules and set a new benchmark for modern sports cars.
The Lotus Change the Rules philosophy is fundamental to our whole approach to car design. Very often, a little lateral thinking, a bit of sideways thought will show a significantly better route. The aluminium chassis on the Elise being a classic example.
The aluminum chassis is the cornerstone of the modern Lotus. Made from 26 aluminum extrusions which are glued together with a heat-bonded epoxy, the resulting 154-pound chassis provides a safe and secure occupant cell and a super rigid frame on which to place the high-performance suspension.
The Lotus sticks to the road so well, mainly because of every aspect of the suspension system works in harmony together. If you think of a corner of the suspension as a series of springs, starting from the tyre, up through the road spring, the damper, the bushings, right up to the body structure itself as a series of springs. If one of those springs is very stiff or very hard, it will dominate everything else. With the Lotus, we blend all of those characteristics so that all of the rates of those complement each other, and therefore they all work in harmony together.
A fully independent high-performance suspension, utilizing unequal length double wishbones coupled with a Bilstein monotube damper and IBAC coaxial coil springs at each corner, maximize the car's dynamic response to driver input. Sharp communicative steering. Quick throttle response. Lightweight aluminum disc brakes, efficient aerodynamics, and the excellent grip attained with the custom-designed Yokohama tires all contribute to the award-winning ride and handling. We've partnered with Toyota to power the Elise and Exige with a 4-cylinder inline water-cooled naturally aspirated engine with double overhead camshafts, 4 valves per cylinder, multi-point sequential fuel injection and electronic ignition. Its combined fuel consumption is a welcome 32.1 miles per gallon and far exceeds national emission standards.
It's a very high specific output, even in the Toyota products. It makes 105 horsepower per litre, which is outstanding. It has a lightweight all aluminium construction and it suits the characteristics of a Lotus. It's an exciting engine It has a very large rev range, and it just suits our vehicle very well.
All of the bodywork of the Elise is made of glass fibre and polyester resin composite materials, high pressure moulded to exact Lotus specifications. And because they're composites and not metal, there's no corrosion. Each panel is trimmed to shape using a computer-controlled water jet cutter to ensure a smooth and precise edge. The complex contoured shapes so iconic of the Elise and Exige models are both lightweight and robust, with a surface finish comparable to conventional pressed steel. The panels are positioned on dedicated trolleys so the cars can be painted without individual components being touched. The process is choreographed amongst 4 skilled painters and takes 15 minutes to paint each car by hand.
We have composite-bodied cars, so therefore we have to paint them differently to other manufacturers who use metal-bodied cars. We use water-based paints because we are very, very environmentally conscious here at Lotus. Those water-based paints, however, have a very high solid paint content in them. So in other words, we are able to have a water-based paint which gives an A1 class finish.
Lotus is committed to quality. So are the folks that make them. They're well trained, they're well motivated with good quality control processes in place. The people who assemble each Lotus are not just employees, they're car enthusiasts who are genuinely excited and interested in the cars they build. Lightweight design, hand-built performance. In the end, you've got one of the world's greatest sports cars.
I think a Lotus driver is someone who appreciates finesse, dynamic ability, and the willingness to continually learn in their own ability, and that their Lotus vehicle will continue to respond and reward them as their ability grows. There's something we engineer into the cars that you can be a novice driver, jumped out of a mainstream vehicle, and you'll enjoy your Lotus. You'll enjoy actually feeling part of that man-machine interface. Although you can take a race driver, put him in the same vehicle, and it will reward him for his greater level of skill. The car will always reward at whatever level your skill is at. So Lotus driver is someone who continually will want to learn and increase his ability and explore the boundaries of his Lotus vehicle.
Lotus founder Colin Chapman built his first car, the Mark I, in 1948, while still an engineering student at London University. Based on a 1928 Austin 7 chassis, the Mark I was built to compete in the 715 Motor Club trials. The Mark VI, a super-light club racer, was the first car produced in large enough quantities to qualify Lotus as a real car manufacturer. Built on a Lotus-designed space-frame chassis with its aluminum body, the whole car weighed in at only 950 pounds. The Lotus road car legend is born with the Lotus 7. Conceived as a no-frills, low-cost, simple sports car that delivered staggering performance, the Lotus 7 was sold mainly as a kit car to enthusiasts. As a descendant of the Mark IX, the Lotus 11 was made on an all-new chassis made from thinner gauge steel tubing. It was an immediate hit and won its class at Le Mans. In fact, Lotus cars recorded an astounding 150 wins in 1956. The following year, the Lotus 11 Series 2 again won both its classes at Le Mans, in addition to the prestigious Index of Performance. The Lotus Elite astounded the motoring world, using aeronautical production standards and designs. The Elite featured a glass fiber reinforced plastic monocoque chassis and a stunning aerodynamically shaped frame with four-wheel independent suspension, disc brakes, and an overhead cam engine. Chapman shocked the racing world in 1962 when he introduced the Lotus 23, initially banned from participating at Le Mans because it was thought to have had an unfair advantage over the competition. First raced by Jim Clark at the Nürburgring 1000 kilometre, it blew away the bigger engines of Porsche and Ferrari by lapping up to 30-second leads before the exhaust failed, causing Clark to be overcome by exhaust fumes and crash. Hollywood would have been proud of the 25's novel-like beginnings, sketched in rough outline on a restaurant napkin. The 25 was the first Formula One race car with a monocoque chassis. It was lighter and stiffer, and had better handling and performance than any other Formula One car at the time. The Lotus 25 debuted in 1962 and was immediately successful, with Clark nearly winning the Drivers' Championship, losing to Graham Hill in the last race due to an oil leak. But Clark dominated in '63, winning the Drivers' Championship with 7 victories in 10 races. The Type 33, the next evolution of the 25, provided Clark with his second championship in 1965. A replacement to the highly successful but difficult to build Elite, the Elan was less complex in design, but offered the high-end road handling of a sports car with its steel backbone chassis. The Elan was extremely successful, selling more than 12,000 cars over its 12-year lifespan. Lotus startled the Indy world with the Lotus 29, the first rear-engine race car to run at Indy. The impact was clear. In the following seasons, everyone would adopt rear-engine race cars. The Lotus 49 was the first race car to have a Cosworth DFV engine. The new power plant was purpose-built for Formula One, and the 49 was installed as a fully stressed member in chassis. That is, the engine is part of the chassis, not bolted into it. Jim Clark went on to win the British Grand Prix in 1967. Graham Hill won the Drivers' Championship in his Lotus 49 in 1968, giving Lotus the championship in 3 years out of 6. The Europa was a mid-engine car that used the same type of backbone chassis and composite body as the Elan and was powered by a Renault engine. The Europa was meant to be an extremely lightweight car and a spiritual successor to the Lotus 7. The Renault engine offered a more economical alternative to the Lotus twin-cam engine in the Elan. Later versions eventually did use the twin-cam engine and returned a much better performance. The Lotus 72 defined racing the first half of the 1970s. The 72 was the first wedge-shaped car to produce downforce because of its shape, and used side pods to house the radiators, which had to be moved from the front of the car. The 72 enjoyed unparalleled success with 20 Grand Prix wins, 2 Drivers' Championships for Jochen Rindt and Emerson Fittipaldi, and 3 Constructors' Championship titles in its career. Produced for more than 25 years, the Lotus Esprit evolved from a 4-cylinder 160 horsepower engine to a 265 horsepower turbocharged engine, and finally into a 350 horsepower twin-turbo V8 powered supercar. Some have called the Lotus 79 and its predecessor the 78 the most significant vehicle design in racing history. The cars introduced ground effects, where the airflow under the car is used to create a partial vacuum, to literally suck the car towards the pavement. With this innovation, Team Lotus was untouchable in late 1977 and throughout 1978. It delivered Mario Andretti his first Formula One Drivers' Championship in 1978 and the 7th Constructors' title for Lotus. The first generation Elise was introduced in Europe in 1995, as Lotus made a move to get back to its heritage to manufacture a light sports car with a pure Lotus driving experience. The Elise S1 was replaced in 2001 with the Elise S2, with a new and exciting body and updated chassis. Introduced to the United States in July of 2004, the Elise, with its Toyota-powered engine and ultralight design, is an instant success. In the first full year, more Lotus Elises are sold in the United States than any other model in company history. Combining the essence of the Elise with advanced aerodynamic technology, Lotus develops the Exige, the ultimate driver's car for the road and track. Powered by the same engine that powers the Elise, the Exige produces enhanced grip using its front splitter, rear wing and underbody diffuser, which work together to mold the airflow around the car and create nearly 100 pounds of balanced downforce at high speeds.